This is Writers Not Writing, the show where you can get to know your favorite writers and soon-to-be favorite writers by listening to them confess to the ways they procrastinate. Thanks for procrastinating with us. I'm Benjamin Gorman, and the quiet guy behind the glass there is Doug the producer. I write novels and collections of poetry and stuff. Doug tries his best to make me sound better. From NotAPipePublishing, welcome to Writers Not Writing.
My time.
Hail and well met, readers and reviewers. Today's guest is GiGi Meier. GiGi Meier is a former C-suite executive turned contemporary and dark romance author. She traded the boardroom for the bedroom, writing steamy romance novels about strong female characters and their complicated, swoon-worthy men. She loves telling stories and figuring out why her characters do what they do. With heartbreaking, angsty, panty-dropping lust, and enviable love, her stories linger long after you close the book. Welcome, GiGi. I'm very glad to have you here today.
Oh, thank you for having me. That's quite the intro. I appreciate that.
You know, we bring the energy. And speaking of which, we always come in costume like this. And so the folks who are watching on YouTube, they can see we're in these amazing costumes, but the people on the podcast need a description. So tell everybody on the podcast what you're wearing right now. That is an amazing getup.
Okay, so without telling the actual name of what I'm wearing, it is a thick canvas material. It swooshes when I shuffle. It's very heavy, and I have a glass helmet. Well, I have a metal helmet with a glass front that fogs up with my breath, and a long trailing air tube.
Yes. Yeah, I am impressed that it's not too echoey in that enormous helmet. But that's great. We're still getting good sound quality, so that's good. Well, I decided to go with something complimentary, so I am wearing this mermaid costume. And I've got the conch bra. I've got I mean, folks can't see the tail here on YouTube, but this glorious sequin tail, and then this enormous red wig, which is trying to simulate being in the water and flowy. And so it's really large. And I realized if I have to take a bathroom break, I'm going to have to hop out of here, and everything is going to be bouncing. It's going to be horrifying for the viewers. So I hope you will not have to see me get out of this chair in this mermaid outfit, because it's a lot. But
You're stunning. You're stunning.
We are committed to the bit for the show. So I've been so excited to talk to you. What is the new secret thing that you've been working on that we can tell listeners about?
Not book related, right?
Oh no, it can be book related. It can absolutely. I want to give space for that. We'll get to what you do when you procrastinate. But what is the big? I mean, you've got the podcast, you've got the YouTube channel, but there's something else. What else is coming up that you can reveal?
Yes. So I have a spicy new series, and in fact, I kind of did a reveal on Instagram about it, like a little teaser. But it is biker romance, and it's not motorcycle MC romance, but it's these crotch rockets, these hot,
Yes.
young that are blasted all over TikTok and Instagram. So I'm writing my own series with that. Ooh.
Yeah, so the Honda, the ones that go 200 miles an hour.
Ducatis, Yamaha. Yes,
Yes.
I deep dived into 5 different bikes because there's 5 different bikers, and it's all set in Boston. They're all a bunch of rich, smart kids that zip around the city and get into some trouble. Spicy trouble.
Spicy trouble. Yes, excellent. And when can folks keep an eye out for that hitting shelves?
Okay, so that one comes out. The first one comes out around Christmas, but right now I'm actually writing my 5th book in the Cougars and Cubs series, and it is exactly as its namesake.
Yes.
That one is Insta steamy naughty fun.
Yes. Oh, that is great. So, outside of your work, when you actually, I mean, you're doing 1,000 things, but outside of your work, when you get a break, what has been pulling you away from your work in terms of pop culture fun these days?
Okay, so pop culture fun. I'm trying to think. Well, in a couple weeks, I'm headed to Boston. I say that it is for market research, but I'm going with my sister and my daughter. And so we're supposed to be doing like college tours and all the adult things, but I also need to get like a lay of the land for this series coming up. So that's fun. I am looking forward to that. That's in 3 weeks.
Oh yeah, that's great. So yes, the vacation planning, are you like filling up the schedule with schools or with, all the sites, or what all is filling up the day when you're there?
Oh, all the sites. And so I have a friend who's kind of the inspiration for my biker series. He's like this he's my friend's son. He's 26 and he just got out of Boston College graduate program. And so he's kind of the inspiration for the biker series and to go back and set it in Boston.
Nice. Yeah. So what all are you looking forward to seeing? Like, I love Boston. It is a fun city. There's a lot to see. What are you looking forward to checking out while you're there?
Okay, I'm kind of a history buff, so I know that's so nerdy and but there's just so much history related to America, our start. I want to go to the Paul Revere tour. I know my sister wants to go like Martha's Vineyard, so she wants to do more of the quintessential tourist stuff. I
Yeah.
want to do all the historic stuff. Like I want to walk the cobblestone streets and kind of envision, the start of it all.
Yeah. Well, and I encourage you, go down, by the bay, get some good food. Like, it's just fun to walk around. It's a very, it's a cool city to see. So yeah, you will have a blast. So what about in the news? What have you been noticing? We are recording. This is, a peek behind the curtain for the folks who are watching. We are recording this, and it won't come out for a bit. So, for the listeners, I exist in your past and you exist in my future. So when we're thinking about news stories, it can't be today's news, but what caught your attention online?
Okay, again, not sexy by any means and super nerdy, but I mean, there's just so much. I try and stay away from like the political landscape because, oh my gosh, there's fodder for both sides, and we can go on and on for that. And quite honestly, that's boring. But one thing I saw that's near and dear to my heart is there's been a recent breakthrough in dementia. And so that's close to me because my mom suffered with that towards the end and she's since passed. And so out of Queen Mary University, there is a new study or a new test that shows you or who recipients have the capability of being identified for dementia way before any of the symptoms start.
Mm,
And I find that totally fascinating because I'm like, how in the world is that the case?
yeah.
And so it allows something about like brain default mode network is what they're saying that they can test it and be able to find out that you have dementia before you actually have any of the onset of the symptoms and then be able to counteract it with medicines because there is no
Yeah.
cure. You
Oh
just slow
yeah.
it down.
Get you on
So,
Aricept really early, yeah, that's wonderful. Well,
oh,
you
do you
should join
know?
us. We do a thing every year through the Alzheimer's Association where we write together from dawn till dusk on the longest day of the year, and you get a ton of writing done. And then we raise money for folks who have Alzheimer's and dementia, and the families who are caring for them. We should totally get you in on that. It would be really fun.
Oh
And it's
my
just all,
gosh, that is
yeah.
near and dear to my heart. So yeah, that is amazing. And when you said the drug, I'm like, how do you know you must be
Oh,
affected by it?
Oh yeah, so I've got grandparents on both sides, Alzheimer's one side, dementia on the other. Yes, so that it happens, and it is in my future. And I was talking to a friend who's a doctor, and she was like, "You can start Aricept basically anytime. Like we don't do it
Okay.
because it's costly and medication
Oh,
has side effects and that kind of thing. But it's like,
our healthcare
yeah,
system.
don't be afraid, folks. Start early because it's a really challenging. I mean, you experienced it as a family member. It's incredibly challenging. And so, yeah, getting out, it is exciting that they're finding some ways to catch that early and we can.
Well, they're the largest generation, so the baby boomers are the largest generation aside from what Gen Z or the digital ones. And so now we start this 20-year progression of that group aging. So for the next 20 years, we're going to see that. And people say, oh, well, that's taxing on our healthcare system. And I'm like, well, damn, guys, that is a subset that we can research and study because we're at the cusp of a 20-year trend. And so let's jump ahead of it and be progressive.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's such an exciting time in terms of what they're doing, medically with, genetics, all this, the work that came through studying for the COVID vaccine, where there were some breakthroughs there that I'm hopeful will, turn into preventative, medicines for a whole lot of things. And that would be wonderful if they could say, hey, we learned how to crack this, and can give you this shot that prevents this cancer or that cancer. And so my hope is that that will be for some of the, Alzheimer's, dementia kinds of things as well. That would be wonderful. So
Yeah, I know we make more money off sick people than we do preventative, but I think like if you invest in preventative anti-aging, people want to look good, feel good longer.
yeah,
So I
quality
feel
of
like
life.
you can, we can move some of the billions of dollars for treatment and cancer over to preventative. And I feel like there wouldn't be that big of a deficit financially.
Yeah, yeah. And it's certainly it's a good investment. The quality of life benefit for so many people. It's worth looking into. So, yeah, that is there. I am hopeful. But once you get on the Alzheimer's Association's, mailing stuff, they send you stuff every month, and they're like, there was this breakthrough, and there was, and this early preliminary study, and because people are so hopeful. It's also scary that because people are so afraid, they'll leap at, here's this preliminary study that may offer something, and people get so excited, and it's like these things take time, but yeah, I am hopeful.
Yeah,
Um,
I am too.
so what about hobbies? When you're not writing, what has been pulling you away from your work in terms of your hobbies lately?
Well, I have to say it's going to be family. I'm very family oriented, and so this particular summer we've been on 2 trips. I have a high schooler who plays baseball, and if you are part of any club team or travel team, it's very expensive, and you travel a couple states away in order to play the kids that are in your same hometown.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
so you're
My
like, that's
my
lovely.
kids swam, and so I know.
You know, yeah, and you're just like, aren't you guys from Houston? I'm based in Houston, and so I'm like, aren't you guys from Houston too? They're like, oh yeah, we're in like Bay City, and you're like, I'm glad that we came to Hoover, Alabama, to play you guys
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
tournament. Yeah.
Yes.
So we've done 2 of those. My daughter is a fashion model, a runway model, and so she had a photo shoot on the beach in Miami and met with some agents there. So when I'm not traveling with the children and their activities, I try to host like game night to connect with adults and have like non-children conversations.
Yeah, right.
I also run a book club, which I adore the ladies in the book club because it helps me as a writer just to get ideas, to hear what they like, and also to hear what they don't like. I mean, they are some brutal ladies, and they will let you know what their pet peeves are when they are reading. And so as an author, I'm just basically picking up everything that they're laying down.
Oh yeah, that you're right. It's so helpful when somebody goes, "Oh, I hate when I see this in stories," and you're like, "Oh no, I did that recently. I think I can go edit that." That's worth avoiding. People really, really detest that. A friend of mine was saying there's this push to have more representation in our books, and that's wonderful. But one of the kind of perverse kind of side effects of it is for a lot of LGBTQIA plus characters, the plot point ends up being the big coming out moment rather
Mm.
than this character being queer from the jump, and that's just who they are. And so a friend of mine was saying she's so tired of that being like a big reveal is and I was like, oh, I've done that before. I need to watch out for that. It was really helpful to me to hear this criticism and go, oh, I can edit that out real quick. That's good.
It is helpful. My sister is a lesbian. And so, just growing up with her, and she's since married, been married for quite a long time. So when I have things that I'm writing kind of outside my comfort zone or outside, she's one of my sensitivity readers. And then her wife is Sicilian and Cuban. And so when I write anything Latin or if I use Spanish, she's my other reader. So I try to deploy teams so that way I'm cognizant because we do want to have a diverse cast. It just makes for richer stories, but at the same time, you want to be cognizant that you don't fall into stereotypes. And so
Yes.
I have a team of different readers for different books to make sure that I'm not writing into that.
Exactly. Yes. I love my sensitivity readers. They have rescued me from myself so many times
Oh,
where they
yeah.
point out, one of my books, the protagonist is a black 17-year-old girl. very, very different from me. And there's a
You don't
scene
say.
where she is getting her hair done. And that is something I have not personally experienced. And she's doing it in a, in a white community where nobody can do her hair. And so I really wanted to make sure I was getting that right. And I was like, I need a sensitivity reader who can say, okay, well, this portion of the process takes longer than that. And this portion of the process wouldn't be done in that way. And, and her discomfort with having white people trying to do her hair, you can dial that up even more. And so that was really helpful to get that insight. Yeah, I highly recommend to authors, you want to have a diversity of a cast because that's the real world we live in. And
Exactly.
also, you need those voices. That's really, really important to help you get
Well,
out.
and a quick tip to those that are listening, go out to Instagram. If you're writing and you don't have those people in your universe, because let's be honest, we don't have every friend in the world represented around us that we can tap into. And so if your circle of influence is small, then you just go out to Instagram and say, hey, this is the type of beta or, alpha, beta, or ARC reader that I'm looking for. You kind of define what the requirements are. And then I've had many, many people jump in and say, I would love to read your book. And so I have different levels. I do have alphas and I do have ARC teams.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
And so it's
really
all
smart.
through social media.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I've found folks that way as well. And I do believe in, those alpha folks deserve to be paid. This is a job. They are doing the service, but you're right. Having that beta reader catch something and say, okay, your alpha reader didn't catch this, but you shouldn't trust. I wouldn't want anybody trusting any one reader to represent an entire community. And so having more voices to say, well, that's not always true is really, really helpful.
But the caveat to that is if you have too many betas, then you get too much feedback and you're just like, eeks, which direction do I go? Because I've learned that lesson too.
Oh yeah, too many hands in the kitchen. I've absolutely had that
I had
where I'm
like
like,
10
ugh,
betas and I was like, this is exciting. And then you get all that feedback. Ooh, it
yeah,
was overwhelming. And you have
yes.
to, just kind of trudge through it. And you're just like, okay, this is the worst book I've ever written. Why did these people even read it?
You'll get a kick out of this. I have pajamas that look like a suit of armor, and that's what I put on when I get my edits. So I put on my suit of armor. Okay,
Oh, that's so
now I'm
cute.
like I'm in costume. I'm in the right headspace. Okay, now I'm in my suit of armor. Now it's time to get beat up a little bit. But and so like I'll have pictures of me, like on the treadmill with the laptop, but I'm wearing the suit of what looks like a suit of armor because getting the edits. Yeah,
Oh
that's
my gosh, that's hysterical. Okay, I need to do that. I have to figure out my version of a suit of armor because yeah, it can be for those that are a writer, if you've put out any kind of published work, it is brutal. But you want the betas to be the ones to send you the brutal feedback and not the ones who it goes to publication, then it's reviewers that are saying it, and you're
right.
thinking, oh my goodness, you can't undo that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm so grateful for those folks, even if it's, a spelling error or whatever. Thank you for catching that and saving me from that embarrassment. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, I can't believe I let that get through. How did I not catch that one myself? So, yeah, it's
Oh no, I say that all the time to anybody that reads my works. I have a developmental editor, I have my, copy line editor, and then I have my 5 alpha readers. It can get by all of us.
yeah.
So yeah, and I don't know how that happens, but I'll tell you a little antidote. There was a book, and I always forget the name, but it was like a Hillary Clinton, her book with a co-writer, ghostwriter, and she had a typo. And so
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like, Hillary Clinton's book, who
Right.
goes through like a million eyes that Simon and Schuster can have a typo. This indie author can have a have one.
Absolutely. Well, and what we realize, which I think a lot of readers don't, is sometimes the typo wasn't in the manuscript. The typo is a product of the editing. So, you get five
Uh,
alpha readers and they're all making different recommendations. And I had one where I ended up with like a repeated and because, somebody said, okay, you should add this phrase. And they included the and, but the original text had the and. And I just approved the suggestion and then double and so it's not that it was in there before, it's too many hands in the kitchen and that's part of the and I'm still grateful for those folks. Like I would rather have a double and than not have their edits but yeah, those things do sneak through.
exactly.
So what about hobbies? What's a hobby you got? You were talking about the kids. What about entertainment? What's been pulling you away from your work lately?
Okay, so if I really had my way, Coldplay would go back on tour in the Northern America. And so my sister is like, oh, we should just go to Europe and go to one of their shows. And although I would love to do that, if I had my way, that would happen. But Chris Martin has not actually called me up to communicate his plans.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
aside from that,
Well, I mean, we're on the podcast now. Chris Martin, I'm sure you're
if
listening.
he could just dial in,
Yeah.
that would be super.
Have you ever seen them live before?
Yes, twice.
They're really fun. I saw them early. I saw them after the Yellow album, and it was
Mm.
much heavier than I thought. And really, they were really fun live. So, folks who have not gotten to see, I mean, this happens so often with bands. You're like, oh, this is why these people are famous. They really are very talented.
Okay, so we were in San Diego at Snapdragon Stadium, sold out, and you're literally watching them and the performance, and they have a lot of conservation efforts. They have a lot of humanitarian efforts. So it goes into that at the very beginning while you're waiting, right? Through all the between the second act and them going on.
Mhm.
But what surprises me so much is when you watch them, you're literally watching someone's greatness. It is the pinnacle of the, 30 plus years that they've been together, all the performances, all of that. And of course, you're seeing their greatest hits like every artist does. But when you're sitting there, you're thinking to yourself, this is the epitome of greatness. And how do I, as an individual, achieve my own greatness? How do I become the version of them that is locked inside every one of us?
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of it is practice. They are on a stage, 3 nights a week performing these songs. They're getting better and better and better. And there's lots of research about this. You're getting your 10,000 hours. And we as authors need to go, I can't just, your first novel is not your best novel. Like we are going to get better through that repetition. And you're right. So seeing them, we see them and we're like, this is the performance, and it absolutely is. But at the same time, it's also practice. Like they are improving.
Yeah, you got to get your reps in.
Yeah, right. So let's go to our ad break. When we come back, I'm going to ask you what you've been daydreaming about lately.
Oh, that's a good one.
Special announcement time. NotAPipePublishing has always been committed to helping authors and readers find one another. Well, this show, which is all about helping readers get to know writers, just hit a milestone: 10,000 views on YouTube. So to celebrate, instead of charging authors to advertise their books on the show, I'm going to run your ads for free throughout 2024. If you want to make a 30 to 60 second video about your book, let folks know what it's about and where to find it, and don't forget your name and the title. I'll run 1 or 2 of those in our ad spot each week. Just send an MP4 file to the NotAPipe email address in the show notes. Let's fix up some readers and authors into reader relationships. 2024. More readers, more writers, more books.
Hi, I'm children's author Sarah Geddes. I'd love for you to check out my book, Henry the Sneezing Dragon. It's about a clumsy dragon in search of friendship. My book, To the Moon, a Jacob and Trevor adventure, will be released September 2024. A story about 2 little boys who use fairy dust to travel to the moon. And in fall 2024, The Water Bear Astronaut, about a tardigrade who travels to space, will also be coming out. All books will be available on Amazon.
No one wants to live in a country ruled by wizards, unless the alternative is worse. Peter Watts, author of Blindside, says, a near-perfect blend of implacable horror, gallows humor, and ecological apocalypse. Nick Namadas, author of The Second Shooter, says, relentlessly radical and often hilarious. Cascade, Book 1 in the Sleep of Reason trilogy, by Rachel A. Rosen. Available now at bookshop.org, Apple Books, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and at bppress.ca.
I'm realizing I need to do a better job of telling folks this. People can't know what we refuse to share. I'm a big fan of audiobooks. I've been doing a ton of work in my yard, and audiobooks have been my constant companions throughout. I know there are some people who say reading an audiobook doesn't count as reading. They are wrong. Reading with your ears requires some of the same skills as reading with your eyes, and some distinct skills, but it's still creating meaning from a text, and it counts. I have 5 of my books out in audiobook on Audible and Amazon. The Convention of Fiends, Book 1, Don't Read This Book, and Book 2, You Were Warned. Corporate High School is narrated by Crystal Kay, and she did an amazing job. I narrated The Digital Storm with some cool voice changer software for some of the characters, so that sounds like a bit of an ensemble. And I recorded one of my collections of poetry, This Uneven Universe, as a gift for my wife Crystal, who wanted to be able to listen to it while driving. So if audiobooks are a way you enjoy reading, check those out. And if you like them, let me know, readers and reviewers. Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with GiGi Meier. And GiGi, when you have been daydreaming lately, what have you been daydreaming about?
Okay, again, I think this whole theme of this podcast is going to be like, she's a humongous nerd, because
You're in the right place.
I'm in good company. That's good to know. So have you metrics and systems? So what do I mean by that? Have you seen Rob Dyrdek, or do you remember him? Rob Dyrdek, he was a skateboarder. If anyone who watches any kind of MTV, he started out with Robin Big. He has like Fantasy Factory. He has Ridiculousness now. So anyway, he has a podcast, and I stumbled across it, I don't know, sometime this summer, and he talks about rhythm of existence and how he's been able to like life hack his schedule to get the most things done. And he has all these metrics in the system of how when he wakes up, he knows everything that he's going to do. It's curated. He knows when he's getting his haircut. He has date night scheduled in. He has, the number of shows that he puts out for MTV is like, it's staggering. And so I've been kind of overdosing on his stuff, because I was like, okay, if anyone has a life hack to like make things easier, faster, more efficient, I'm all in. Like as a single mom, I have so much going on, an entrepreneur, trying to write books, trying to expand our reach, trying to raise like good, productive children. And so anybody that has a life hack, I'm like, tell me everything.
Yeah. Oh, a couple of weeks ago on the show, I had Charlie Gilkey, and he has a book out that is specifically for creatives about that kind of how to organize your time to maximize your creativity. You'd really like it. Charlie Gilkey, and that's his, I think it's Creative Flourishing is his website. There's always a tension for me, because I'm like, but is it flexible enough to be, to be fun, or do you stress about the system itself? How do you end up feeling about it? Does it bring you some comfort to go, okay, I know that things are scheduled and ordered and that kind of thing, or do you stress about, having it systematized properly?
That is such a good question, because he talks about the machine mindset and how like we get in our own ways. Like you need to prioritize logic over emotion. And so to your point, like if I just stick to the schedule, which there's built-in flexibility, then I get a ton done. I feel great mentally and emotionally. And then I still have time for my off time or my downtime, to do whatever I want to do. But I struggle with that much structure, because I'm just like, well, what if I don't want to write for 3 hours? But if you did write for 3 hours and you have those results, you're going to feel amazing, because we all know words on a page you can edit. Words that aren't on a page, you can't, right? And so I struggle with it. I can get about 3-4 days in a row where I follow this schedule, and to take it to super nerd level, I had a conversation back and forth with ChatGPT about what I should be doing and how I should utilize my time. And if I'm a, morning lark, or if you're a night owl, what would be the best schedule? And so I kind of started deconstructing my life with my friend ChatGPT and then put it in this app to help me stay on focus. And so I can get about 3 or 4 days in a row and I feel like a rock star, but then I totally fall off the wagon. And it's like everything just like goes for, shit. Cause I didn't wake up at 6 and I didn't make my breakfast. And I didn't, all these other things I was supposed to do. And I'm like, oh, that's it.
But have you learned to kind of give yourself grace on day 4? Like, that's okay. That's going to happen. And I was more productive because I had these 3-4 days that were really solid. it's okay to kind of, in total, the sum total was more productive because I was so structured.
Okay, yes, but that's a misnomer because what ends up happening, and there may be some of your listeners that feel this way, is that when you lay in your filth long enough, you kind of get annoyed with yourself. It mentally, you bring yourself down. It's not productive. And my brain just goes in this like hyper spiral downward. And so even though it's harder to be disciplined, mentally and emotionally, I feel amazing. Then when I take this big day off and I do nothing that I had planned, and then so it's a misnomer, right?
Yeah, I am the same way. If I don't work, I am anxious because I'm not working and I'm thinking about the things that I need to do. Now, my son, will help me where he will go, it's okay to take a day off. But I need that external voice to say, you can take a day and not do 1,000 things. Because like even on vacations, I struggle to vacation. Where I'm not going, okay, but there's still 1,000 things that I need to do. And now I'm worried about what's going to happen when I get home. But, I think that's folks like us who are doing so many disparate things. You've got the Instagram, you've got the YouTube, you've got the writing, it ends up feeling like there are far too many tasks. And, if I take a break, there's danger.
Oh my gosh, Benjamin, I feel so seen because we were in Destin, Florida last year, and everybody's like, Destin. And granted, yes, emerald water, white sands, stunning. So we're on the beach and there's this destination called Crab Island. And so I was like, everybody's like, we're going to Crab Island. There's all these families that had, traveled to Destin. So Crab Island, not to speak disparagingly, but candidly, is a floating bar.
Yeah.
And that's it. Have you been?
No, but I know those the kind of all-inclusive resort kind of thing where it's just like bar after bar. This is where you go to just get hammered and
well, you go to off the bay and you launch your boat and then you just sit in the ocean and then you can float over to the bar and get drinks and then come back. And I was like, I must be missing something. Is this it? Is this this is all we're doing is we're laying in the sun? Again, white sands, Emerald Beach, it's the heat. And then I'm just going to have, my drink. This is it. And so, I was getting nervous, like a little anxious. I was like, I can't put my brain on the shelf this long I was like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do?
Yeah,
So,
no, that absolutely, that's me. I'm like, but isn't there something I'm supposed to accomplish today? And, I need somebody to go, no, today you're not going to accomplish anything.
Yeah, this
that's
is
hard
it.
for me to hear.
Sitting on the boat, putting on sunscreen, drinking your drink, enjoying the outdoor beautiful weather. And I was like, this math is not mathing.
Yeah. But what did I do? But did I, yep. Yeah. Well, and I think that's, healthy that we have that, that desire to be so productive, but it can get to the place where I have to be like, this is now unhealthy. Like I should be able to relax.
Yeah.
So, one of the questions I always ask folks is about some other kind of universe. If you were in Dungeons and Dragons or Star Trek or something like that, what would be your race and class, just as a kind of Rorschach about you? So, what would be your character in some other universe?
Okay, this is blasphemy, but I've never seen Dungeons or Dragons or Star Wars or Star Trek. And I have friends that are around me that are big Star Wars. They've seen all the movies and they cannot believe that I haven't seen one of them. And I'm like, I just, I mean, we can watch, like, I don't know, do we watch it alphabetically, like chronologically?
It's
like when the
at this point, it's a big lift, and I'm not going to be one of those people who's like, you are obligated to now invest this huge amount of time in learning all this lore, because it's a lot now. It's not watching one movie in 1977 anymore.
Okay, well, we were in the Hurricane Beryl came through Houston. We were, like 3/4 of the city was without power. I was lucky enough that I was able to evacuate to a home that had generator power. And so it's all home generators. So you have everything. And so this is one of my Star Wars people that have collectibles, have a whole room of collectibles, like thousands of dollars. It has its own insurance policy, which I learned about. I was schooled in all this during the being evacuated for the hurricane. And I said, we could just watch one or two. And I was like, I think there was like that one with her buns in there. And they're like, oh no. But I thought you start the storyline A to Z, but apparently he didn't. He started somewhere in the middle, and then you go back. And I was like, okay, I'm a very linear person. When I write very linear. So I can't do this jumping around and keep up with it. So
Oh, the debates about the order in which you should experience these, are part of the whole game of it. Like, people will get
legendary.
together and go, I think you should start with episode 4. No, you should start with Rogue One. No, you should start with episode 1. And it is, yeah, I mean, I think that is fun for Star Wars nerds. Like, the debate of when to, what order you should experience them in. And some of them will try multiple, which tells you how many hours they're investing. If they're saying, I'm going to try it 5 different ways, watch the entirety, it's a lot now. I mean, there's a lot of content. So yes, you are in no way, shape, or form obligated. So if you were in some other universe, what would be the universe where you would have a character that would reveal something about who you are as a person?
Okay, so I do read fantasy. So I love high fantasy. And of course, the queen of fantasy is Sarah Moss. Everybody knows her from the ACOTAR series. And so I think like a lot of women are entranced with fae men, just things they can do, the things that they can say, and they have wings. And so I think I obviously wouldn't be the main character because that's way too much responsibility. And she goes on this epic emotional arc. I mean, this epic one, but maybe like a cute side character where I can have my fae man.
So what do you think that's really interesting? What do you think that reveals about you that you would cast yourself as the side character?
Oh, I know exactly what it is. So it's having to always be in charge, right? It's 30 years of climbing the corporate ladder. I was in a male-dominated industry. I was the youngest when I made it to the C-suite as chief administration officer. I was the youngest by 15, 20, 25 years from my male counterpart. I was the only female. So I was the succession plan. My boss had retired. I was the next generation to take over for the C-suite because we had been criticized by the regulators for not having a succession plan. It was all older men who ran the firm. And so I've always, then being a single mom, that all the responsibility is yours, everything, the buck stops here. And so to not be in the spotlight and to then be a side character where I'm taken care of by a fae man, it's just so obvious.
And to just be able to be there and be fun. Like,
Oh my God.
like,
Yeah. I listened to a podcast for this lady. She's legendary in Houston, but she's a professional party planner. Like, her husband is like skillionaire, and she fundraises for the arts here in Houston. And so all she does is plan parties and have engagements. And I was like, what is this life? Like, someone pull back the curtain and it's like the voice of Oz.
Yeah. Yeah. But I wonder, I mean, to go back to what we were talking about, the party planning has got to be incredibly arduous. So it's, she's not just getting to party, like, she's having to work really hard. I wonder if it takes away the fun of parties to some extent to be like looking around at a party going, I could have planned something better than this.
That's why I was listening to this podcast, because her stuff is legendary. It's spectacular. It has moved international. And so just to get a peek inside her world and how she fundraises for these and the dollars that she raises for, like the Houston Grand Opry or for the Museum of Fine Arts, she is definitely superb. Remember, we made that statement about Coldplay operating at his greatness. This is definitely her. I mean, the Louvre out of France asked her to fundraise, a Texan and not a French woman, so to your point, I know it's a lot of work. So even though she doesn't get paid because she's, her husband is the provider, it is definitely a full-time job and then some.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, if I have 20 people over, that's like a week beforehand. That's, I mean, the amount of time that takes, even for a small get together.
Yeah, it's not 250 people across 3 days. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that just sounds incredibly draining. I mean, it'd be a lot of fun, but also like that's a lot of work.
Yeah,
That would be
and
cool.
she does 2 of these a year. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I would love to have her fundraise for Not a Pipe Publishing. Like that would be really cool. We would be in a, very different world if, that's excellent.
You would be in a real castle.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I would. Yes, the publishing headquarters is a castle. That would absolutely be our style. So, what do you want listeners to know about right now that's going on in your life?
Oh, okay. So I do have actually two series coming up. See, I told you about my Bikers in Boston, and then I love dark romance. And so dark to me is like deeply disturbing, traumatic, but very reflective of real life issues. And so if you were to go to my website, you'll see all my content and trigger warnings because I put them out there. I don't want people to go in blind. But the idea is that I want to write a dark series, which is going to be a modern day retelling of the Greek mythology as Russian mafia.
Ah,
So I
with
think that'd
like
be really
the
fun.
various Greek, is it more Greek heroes or like the Greek pantheon, like the Greek gods as the dons kind of a thing?
Yeah, so the Greek gods, I have 40,000 words already written in Hades and Persephone. And so that is coming out in an anthology this month, at the end of this month, but that's going to expand into a full dark romance series.
Oh, I've done, one of my first novel was, I call it Gently Blasphemous, and it's, a world where all the various gods of all the, mythology, but also modern religions are all interacting with one another. And it's kind of, comedy, but it was a ton of research, but a ton of fun. Like I love those retellings. So yeah,
Well,
that sounds
people
wonderful.
accuse Dan Brown of being his novels being blasphemous.
Yeah. Yep. I was actually hoping for more controversy. That would have been really helpful for sales. If people would have been deeply, deeply offended, and instead they were like, well, this is funny and fun. And I was like, no, you're supposed to be outraged.
I want books being banned and
Right.
burned in the
Yeah,
streets.
nobody was screaming and yelling about how much they hated the fact that, like I had
No
Jesus was
pitchforks
living
in
in
court.
his dad's basement because he was depressed because the church was cheating on him. Like I thought that was really funny and clever, and people were like, yeah, that's fine. And I was like, wait, 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 what? So, now you've recently taken up a new sport. How's this been going?
Okay, well, that's very generous of you to say sport, because I have taken up pickleball and I am truly terrible. And so I play with a couple people that one's a 70-year-old guy. He comes in with a knee brace, okay, and he will smoke you.
Oh yeah.
He takes it super serious, and I'm just trying to get it back over the net. I just want like an ongoing volley. I don't know about the kitchen, if I stepped in it or not, or do we switch sides or I'm on the wrong side. Though I just play the whole thing, which you're not supposed to play the whole court. You're supposed to play like, your little section, like Foursquare. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I was like, just let me get it over the net. And then when I get good enough to continue to get it over the net, then we can go over to like and impose some rules. And he does not agree. But yeah, I get smoked by this 70-year-old pickleball champion.
You'll get a kick out of this. 20 years ago, when I was in college in Washington State, which is where pickleball kind of took off, it was a college class we could take. And so I
No
took
way.
pickleball as one of my PE requirements, and it was the joke class. Like those of us who are out of shape and not particularly interested in any, we had my university, there were tons of folks who, were going into like physical therapy and that kind of thing. And so there were lots of these incredible athletes who were also studying medicine and stuff. And then there were like schlubs who were like, yeah, I guess I'll just do pickleball. I did pickleball and swimming for fitness. So I do remember, and bowling, those were my three. And bowling was a ton of fun, being able to go, oh, I guess I have to go bowling every day. But pickleball was one where we had to learn pickleball. And you're right, some folks take it very, very seriously. And then it fell out of my life for 20 years. And now it is the rage. People across the country are, LeBron James is playing pickleball.
Okay, I didn't know it had even been around that long.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, it is when people say it's for, like you said, it's for you schlubs. Oh my gosh, my heart rate,
Oh, yeah.
it's jacked way up there. And I'm like, okay, this is like supposed to be easier than tennis. I'm like, I think I would have a heart attack if I played tennis.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I was spoiled a little bit because my dad is a very, very good tennis player, and
Oh,
was the coach of my brother's tennis team, and that. So I knew tennis a little bit going into it, and I was like, oh, this is, it feels like dialed down tennis a
yeah,
little bit,
tennis
but
light.
Oh yeah, if you're playing that 70-year-old, it's a workout. Like the person who takes it very seriously. If you're playing it with people who are going, I'm getting my PE credit knocked out, it was a far more tame version, I think we were probably
Oh
playing.
no, let me tell you, he has the headband. I mean, he reminds me of, who was that? Jimmy Connors, or remember that
Yes.
old, he has
Yes.
the headband and the red, white, and blue, and then he has those those like
Oh
headband
yeah.
wristbands. I mean, he comes in ready to go, like he is going to pickleball war, and I'm the prey, and I'm like, there's no competition. I am seriously terrible.
But the time you beat him is going to feel amazing. And it's going to be, he has an off day, but it doesn't matter because you will be like, I beat the 70-year-old amazing pickleball player. And nobody else is going to appreciate it in your life. You're going to be like, I beat Barry. And they're going to be like, he's 70. And you're going to be like, you don't understand. He's so great.
It'll be after he has a hip replacement, maybe, that'll finally be able to beat him up,
Yes.
like, I beat the 70-year-old after his hip replacement. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
those are bragging rights.
Yes, yes. I look forward to that Instagram reel where you're just like bouncing off the walls, like I finally won, and then like update. I found out he had his hip replaced, and
Yeah, and the theme song will be Queen, We Are the Champions
yes,
of the World. Obviously, that'll be playing.
exactly. Excellent. So, what has been on your TBR pile? What are you looking forward to reading yourself lately?
Oh my gosh. So my TBR pile is ridiculous. And so they have these, I know it just,
Yep.
people come out with like beautiful stories and books. You're like, I am so reading that. That's going to be the next. And then someone else comes out and you're like, oh, that one's going to be the next. And so then they have these like stuff your Kindle days, which, oh, I swear, it's just too much. So I try to read 30 minutes before going to bed every single night. And I have carried the Deion Sanders book with me everywhere. My friends are like, you've got to be joking me. Because, I'm probably not who Deion Sanders had in mind as his target reader when he wrote it. Because you know how we're always supposed to picture your avatar.
Right, right.
I'm pretty sure he didn't pick me as his avatar. But anyway. So I'm finishing up his book to get the nuggets. And then I have one that's called The 11 Lessons of Life by Chetan. Oh gosh, I can't think of his last name. B.H. Bagat. I think Chetan.
Bagat. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll put a link to it in the show notes too for folks to check that out as well.
Yes. And so that was referred to me because I am really like a self-development nut. Again, back to that life hacks. If there is a better way, more seamless, more productive, smoother, I'm on board. So
I've always wondered about this. So in your C-suite life, would you find folks who were, in their offices reading that kind of thing, like on the clock, like, hey, is the day too busy to be doing that during the workday? Because so much of management is decision making, and you'd think finding resources that help you make good decisions would be work.
To answer your question, never. I that would have been a luxury. At the time, I was working about 80 hours a week. I had 19 direct report managers. That was over 500 employees that reported up through me. And so you are on meeting after meeting. We would try to cut the meetings back to make them as productive as possible. But when you have that many, well, originally I did not have that many direct reports. I kind of reorganized my division to allow voices to those that have been unheard for a long, long time, many, many years. And through that, the very first year I took over from the C-suite, I had amnesty year. You could bring forward anything that we were doing incorrectly, any ideas you wanted. Nobody was going to get in trouble. Nobody was going to get written up or let go. None of that negative stuff. Because I wanted to get down that first year. I was like, okay, here we go. Let's get down to the core bottom of what's going on, how we got here, why we're here, and then what do we need to be doing. And so that year was probably the most grueling. It was getting to learn.
I mean, it's a wonderful idea, but it's a lot of meetings.
It's also learning different personalities, how some don't want to relinquish control, even though it's for the greater good of the organization. Some are so excited to be heard. They want to tell you everything. They want to fix everything. They're very driven. You have some managers that are very unmotivated. They have been in that position for so long. It's how we've always done it. And, you know, that phrase is the kiss of death of any organization, big or small. And so, but that was kind of my idea, is like, I'm going to come with full transparency. You come with your full transparency. We'll get to the bottom of some of the things that we should and should not be doing, and then go from there. And so it really built trust, because I was the youngest. I was the only female. I had people that I was promoted higher than my colleagues. So all of a sudden, exactly. So that's why I said, okay, the first year we are a team, and this is what our initiatives are. So go ahead and bring them all to the forefront, and let's get them all on an action plan. And we did.
Yeah, one of my big leadership learnings when I was the president of my union was, there are some folks who are very excited about those opportunities to share what are we doing wrong, but they have no interest in engaging in how we're going to fix it, and they just need to be heard. And learning, you know, I would get very excited about, oh, I'm hearing this concern you have, and we're going to fix it. And I learned to go, okay, and we're going to form a committee, and we're going to be trying to fix this problem that's so important to you. Would you be willing to serve on that committee? No. Okay, then this really isn't that big a deal. But like learning how to read who really, you know, just needs to vent and needs that space. And you're right, it's a lot of time, but it's important.
Well, and you also have natural leaders, right? So you have those that are a little bit more docile. They're the last to be heard. They're the last to speak up. And so my rule was, I was the last to be heard. Everybody else had the floor. Everyone else would have their talking points. And when a conclusion kind of started to formulate, we go right back around and say, okay, who has this right? Who has this wrong? Why won't this new idea work? And that collaboration was probably one of the best things I'm most proud about, because we would have people that felt comfortable enough in this, you know, new environment to say, hey, so-and-so has an idea, but here's why it's not going to work, 1 through 3. But if we could just do this differently. And so I was really proud of it. In my leadership role, that's probably one of the best things I did, was developing people.
Yeah, that's an excellent suggestion. You know, we'll be doing meetings, and I'll say, okay, now that we've gone around and we've come to some kind of consensus, what are we not seeing? And get somebody to say, here's the thing that we're not noticing, and that can be really, really helpful.
Well, nobody likes the devil's advocate. They really don't. But you need a devil's advocate in every one of your collaborations, because you're going to go and build something you think everyone's patting themselves on the back because it's so brilliant. And then it goes into production. You're like, wow, we missed the boat.
Well, and that person who didn't speak up is you know, kind of surly the whole time, going, I knew this wasn't going to work. Well, then why didn't you say something? And so creating the space for them to say it rather than be resentful through the entire process is really important.
You know, this is probably not my proudest moment, but everyone knew I was calling on your name. I knew who it was going to be. If there was going to be 5 managers in there, everybody had the floor. And so if you did not, you know, and that's fine. We always had the ones that wanted to go first and get their ideas out there, and then those that would, you know, kind of shore up the end. But I knew I was going to check in and be like, okay, Benjamin, what are your thoughts on all this? Like, no one escaped the scrutiny. And so once I got comfortable doing it privately with our division meetings, then I'd raise it up to the executive management meetings, where, you know, my chairman would turn to me as the chief and ask me, you know, where are we at on this? And I would turn, you know, and ask my, you know, senior vice president or executive vice president, can you give us a status update?
Yeah.
You know, because then that brought them, they had never had a seat at the table. And so I kept, and it was very inclusive. I kept inviting people in. And so it was not only to train them for my level, but to train them for the next level. And so it was a very different dynamic than management had seen in the past.
Yeah. But
it's a generational gap.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's excellent. So, you know, I know this will feel like we're changing gears really hard here, but where can listeners find you online when you aren't writing your books, but you're online and you're promoting? Where can folks find you?
Okay, Instagram is where I hang out the most, because it's just like fun and I can get it. And then I also have YouTube, just like you, under GiGi Meier. So on Instagram, I'm GiGi Meier Media. On YouTube, I'm GiGi Meier, and you'll see my past interviews with authors and those in the publishing industry. And then my podcast is anywhere you can listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, and that's called Literary Lines with GiGi Meier. And so that's where I interview Indian traditional authors.
Yeah. Oh, that's excellent. Very, very cool. And so I will put links to all those. So folks, as you were listening to your podcasting app, just scroll down to the bottom there and you will see links to GiGi Meier Media, to Literary Lines, to the YouTube channel, everything there on the show notes. So what would be a recommendation with all the folks you've met? Who do you think would be another good guest I should have on this show?
Well, I was hoping like eventually Chris Martin, but we'll have to hope that the
I mean,
ethers do their
he's
thing.
listening. Come on, Chris, you've now been invited.
Okay, but I do have an author. He is so much fun, and you don't find too often that men write in romance. And so he's a really dear friend, and he says it's the 3 B's: books, bourbon, and bow ties. He's very gregarious and kind of quirky, but it's author Ivan Scott, and his theme is a redhead. So he's married to a redhead. He calls her Red. And so all of his books are a redhead in Brooklyn or a redhead writes Hemingway. So
That would be fun. Okay, well,
I'm gonna
yes,
put a bug in
I
your
will
ear.
absolutely reach out. That would be a kick.
I'm going to have him reach out to you because he is so entertaining.
Yeah. Oh, that would be fun. Excellent. Okay, so there's some folks I need to thank before we get to our send off. So thanks to the artist Max Oakland, who reached out and provided one of his songs for our intro song, I Prefer the Dusk. Let Max know you like it by following him on Twitter at Max Oakland with 3Ds. And thanks to Halizna CCO for their song Kids for the ad break. If you're in a band and you'd like your song used on the show, I'd love to highlight a listener's work like Max's song, so email me about that. Thanks to Doug, the producer, for making this show sound good and taking the blame when it doesn't. And I cannot forget to mention Writers Not Writing is a production of NotAPipePublishing, so please go to NotAPipePublishing.com, check out the amazing books written by writers who didn't procrastinate too much. If you like this show, rate and review it wherever you found it. And please check out Gigi's website at gigimeier.com or on Instagram at GiGi Meier Media. Tell a friend about it. Even a very short review and that single click on the 5th star will make Gigi's day. So do your due diligence and click on that 5th star. And similarly for this show, if you've got the time, I'm too old to say smash that like button, but if you could gently tap on the like button for this show, I'd really appreciate it. So Gigi, going into this next week, what is your advice for all of our listeners?
To give yourself grace, to contemplate and reflect on whatever is challenging in your life before you take action.
Completely agree. And I always say a book without spaces would be gibberish, and our lives need spaces too, so don't ignore the spaces. And third, no matter how much you procrastinate, Gigi and I are still proud of you.
Yep.
If I take my time